Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Andy, remember all that momentum that the Lakers had after that awesome win against Boston on Tuesday?
Yeah.
That's gone now. The
Yeah.
Lakers lost to Memphis on Thursday, 108-95. And man alive, did they seem disappointed afterwards. We'll
They
explain
should have
why. Yeah, we'll explain why coming up on Locked On Lakers.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day. Make another Locked On podcast your second listen, but definitely after you make us your first. I want to let you know, too, that this episode of Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Truebill. Truebill is the new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need. And you can even negotiate better deals on those that you want to keep. So you got a subscription you want to keep, Andy, you say, talk to my guy. I got a guy for that. So that's what they do. A lot to talk about based off of this game on Thursday night, 108-95. The Lakers lose in Memphis, the first of this sort of mostly road stretch they've got coming up. They were really disappointed, and we're going to get to that. I was disappointed. Like, this to me feels like in a season with now 13 losses to choose from, many of which come against bad teams, two of which come against Oklahoma City. This to me felt as disappointing as any of them, if not more, because there was so much optimism off Boston. They were 5-3 in their last 8 coming into this. At least was a feeling like, okay, like here's another chance to put a good win after another good win, because Memphis without John Morant has played very well.
Yeah.
This was not a softy game, even without Dylan Brooks, who was missing from the game with the COVID protocols. And they got off to such a good start. They came out, they played a good first quarter. LeBron was engaged. The team, put some points on the board despite Avery Bradley in the starting lineup and all the mishigas that we don't always like to see. And
Avery Bradley, actually, just want to note off the top, played really well.
He's
actually one of the better Lakers out there. Just in the interest of fairness, because it's something we've harped on a lot.
Right. Good. It doesn't mean that he should be starting, shouldn't be.
Whatever.
He's not worth noting. He's not the reason they didn't win.
Right.
And they got off to a good start, and his presence wasn't the issue.
No.
But after that first quarter, Andy, that was it. And they maybe 5 minutes in the third, whatever it was, where they pushed back. And that to me was just disappointing to see them unable to carry momentum through in consecutive games against good teams.
There's a lot to unpack from this in terms of what went wrong during it, Brian, and what guys said afterwards, and the general mood of that kind of vacillated between frustration, guys seeking answers, and almost like a sadness afterwards.
They were really down.
But I will just say, as somebody that covers this team but is a Laker fan and was a Laker fan well before I started getting paid to talk about them, cover them, all that stuff, this team is incredibly frustrating to watch. And like, there is a part of you as a fan that is going to struggle with just not giving into the idea of, I'm done with this team. And, I felt like during this game, many points, just going, I'm done with these dudes. And I know that I'm not. I'm specifically getting a paycheck to not be done with these.
It's really
dudes.
important. I mean, that you stick with it. At least for a little
I'm not
while
going
longer.
to be. And when you are a fan of a team, like you are really a fan of one, and I've been a Laker fan for 30 something years or whatever. You're never done with the teams that you are truly a fan of. And I will get excited by the next win, whatever. But this team is such an incredibly frustrating experience to be a part of, because even if you feel like ultimately their ceiling has been dramatically lowered just through roster construction and the imbalances of the way this team was built and some of the things that they took very big swings on that may end up not paying off. Putting all that aside, there's just the question of consistent effort, consistent focus, and just going out there like it really matters to them whether or not they win these games. Like, I'm sure it matters a lot to them how they do in the playoffs, assuming they're in it. Like, I'm sure that matters to them a lot. And
playoffs.
I don't actually expect that if they're in the playoffs, that this type of effort thing and this type of focus thing is going to be as persistent an issue. But until then, they just have to start doing better with it. And they got to stop talking about it. They got to stop acknowledging that they got to play harder. They got to stop acknowledging all that. Just go out there and do it. Just do it. And let whatever chips fall wherever. But just go do it. Beyond everything else, we're going to.
No, I understand. I understand what you're talking about, and I don't think you're wrong. And you look at what happened in this game, and defensively, it looked like the Lakers had breakthrough. Like LeBron pointed it out after the game. They were fine defensively when they played defense. The offense was the issue. They turned the ball over 22 times, and that was mostly backload. They're actually relatively clean early in the game, and relatively. Cleaner. And
I had 5 or 6, I think, in the first quarter. I don't think they were that clean ever.
But I'm saying, like first few minutes when they're, I could be wrong.
I mean, before the ball was jumped, they had no turnovers.
Warm-ups, pass the ball.
Yes, you are
beautifully. The layup line, they possessed the ball.
Yeah. To the best of my knowledge, they didn't turn the ball over during halftime once.
Maybe. I didn't watch.
Yeah, they had 5 turnovers in the first quarter.
Okay. The problem was offense. The problem with their defense on Thursday was their offense. Memphis, was it, I think 28 points, I believe they had off turnovers.
27.
That's not much better. But more importantly here, and it's not just the points off turnovers. It's not just the stress that puts on a defense. When you combine that with second chance points, when you combine, offensive rebounds, and the Lakers, as the game went on, and there was a lineup change to start the third quarter, which was reflective of this, we're just getting hammered on the boards. Steven Adams had 8 offensive rebounds by himself.
John Conchar had 3.
Noted offensive rebound.
Yeah,
John,
he's a shooting guard.
The Grizzlies had 16 more field goal attempts than the Lakers did. They had 1 more free throw. They didn't live at the line. They didn't do all that. Like, they had 16 more field goal attempts. And I don't care who you are. It is really difficult to survive against a decent team, and Memphis is filled with just solid players. Even with Ja Morant out, even with Dylan Brooks missing, up and down that roster, they play very well, very hard, and they just have a bunch of good NBA players. You can't give a decent NBA team 16 more field goal attempts and expect to win, especially if you're a 500 team with a subpar offense and a real sketchball defense. That's just not going to work.
Underscore what you're talking about, Brian. The Grizzlies gave up 22 points themselves off turnovers. 20, I believe it was 22 or 21 points.
Right. By the way, only 11. They only turned the ball over 11 times. The Lakers, the one thing they did really well offensively, they capitalized on mistakes. They got up and down the floor. They ran and finished.
When the team you're playing against gives up that many points off turnovers, 20 off turnovers themselves, 21 points, and you still outdo them on that level, it's like, God damn, you got to want it.
And by the way,
really, truly want it.
And you still can't crack 100 points. It gives you an idea of how bad the rest of your offense was. You're still
losing by double digits when your opponent gave up 21 points off turnovers themselves.
Yeah.
Like, in its own right, that's impressive.
All right, let's talk about other things that, because this is one of those angry venting kind of evenings. I mean, I've been looking at Lakers Twitter and I know how fans are feeling, and I don't even have the same emotional investment as a lot, as many people do,
I do.
kind of as you do. It's just kind of learning how to follow the team, and kind of, it's a season, I'm like them. I'm trying to stay balanced and measured and all that kind of stuff. I'm annoyed. And let's talk, because the big three was central to this, and the contrast we got in the big three was central to it, and I think was relevant for some of the things that came after the game. So we'll talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Truebill. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's because it's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions that you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. Companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, but Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. Truebill has over 2 million users and has helped them save over $100 million. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now, Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA.
Okay, so LeBron James registered his 100th career triple-double on Thursday. He was 7 of 15 from the floor, 10 rebounds, 11 assists. He did turn the ball over 5 times, a few of which he referred to as pick sixes, were just easy buckets the other way for Memphis. Called himself out on those. But he had 4 steals. He had 2 block shots. LeBron played, I thought, pretty well. And more importantly, Andy, we did a show last week entitled LeBron James Needs to Be Better. It's not like we've been unafraid to point out that he has not been at the level the Lakers need him to be.
Specifically, he needs to be better, but also needed to be more engaged, especially
Correct.
defensively. On both sides of the ball, I get the fact that it is his 19th season. I get the fact that his mileage is insane. I get the fact that it's not ideal that you would want that from LeBron. That's the situation we're in right now, in part because this is the team LeBron wanted to build.
Correct.
Them's the rules at this point.
So Tuesday in Boston, LeBron was, he was the Spinal Tap amp going up to 11. He was deeply engaged.
Oh yeah,
on both sides of the ball. And you saw the difference, and it was, and the results the Lakers got. He came out with a very similar energy, I thought, in the first quarter of this game. He was orchestrating the offense, got down in the low post, was waiting for the doubles to come. Simple plays with one of the best passers the game has ever seen. You saw THT flash to the middle. You saw AD flash to the simple stuff, taking advantage of LeBron's brilliance as a passer. And there came a point in this game where he kind of reminded me of Blutarski, John Belushi in Animal House, after the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor, and he's going to run out and go storm the dean's office and nobody gets up to follow him. It was like, and I think LeBron even kind of alluded to that after the game. He's like, I came out with a lot of energy and a lot of things. And I mentioned Lakers got off to a really good start in this game. I felt like he sustained that kind of that energy or whatever, but the rest of the gang didn't come with him. And
the beginning of
he looked irritated by it. I think
the beginning of the third quarter. To your point, the Lakers began down 6. They got back in it pretty quickly. Got it tied up. I want to say it was 59 all, something like 65 all, something like that. And LeBron was a huge part of them getting back in that quickly, making plays on both sides of the ball. So to your point, I think you are correct. That energy was sustained.
And, we've also mentioned, next time I get a chance, we'll ask Vogel this, but Anthony Davis, statistically, the game was fine. Superstars, stars, whatever, they have games like this. 22 points, 8 rebounds, an assist, a steal, a block, 9 of 18 from the floor. If he was on your fantasy team tonight, you're not bowled over, but you're not like, oh my God, that was garbage. But like we've talked about, there's so much variety. Anthony Davis, as much as anybody in the NBA, can put up statistically identical games where the impact is light years different on the spectrum. And this is one of those games where The 22 points were a lot of them came off finishes, on the break, finishes from LeBron, that kind of thing. The 8 rebounds, but only the block shot. Like you didn't feel him in this game at all. Certainly not compared to what he did Tuesday. Not so much from a scoring standpoint, but he's pulling down 16 rebounds. All that kind of you felt Anthony Davis in that game in ways that you didn't feel him on Thursday. And then meanwhile, Russell Westbrook, who's been great for the last 3 weeks or whatever, played like he had a bad game. Played like he did in the first half of the season. It's going to happen, but you were reminded of how fragile the Lakers are when Westbrook doesn't play well and how dependent they are wholly on the big three right now to win games against decent competition. They all just have to be great. There's no other formula for them right now.
Well, in particular, too, when you were talking about Anthony Davis, a frustration that I've had with him this season is it's not that he's played badly this season, because he hasn't. He's actually been very good this season. And he's obviously very talented and he's very skilled. He's incredibly versatile for his size. There's so many different things that he does well. But one of the things that he does not do regularly is just overwhelm you. There are players in the league that just seemingly either live to or just have the ability to regularly bury you. And that is your mindset. LeBron at his best buries you. Durant buries you. Steph Curry buries you.
Jokic,
Damian Lillard,
Giannis,
Jokic, Giannis. Yeah. They just bury you.
Paul George can do that when he's rolling.
Yeah. Anthony Davis does not regularly overwhelm you as a player. He does sometimes. It happens occasionally. And when it does, you feel it. Like Westbrook, even at this stage of his career.
Oh, yeah. Westbrook, when he's rolling, is a force. And all of a sudden, it's like he defines games and rolls over you. And sometimes works the other way. But when it's working right, it's like, damn.
But it is felt this season like Russell Westbrook, even as the guy who is adjusting to the new teammates, even as the guy that we know has been trying his best, to fit in more than fit out, to use the LeBron parlance. Russ has felt like he has overwhelmed opponents in games more than AD, and just that's gotta change. It just has to change, and it's not the same thing as playing well, because again, AD's played well, but we need him to just overwhelm. That's what Laker fans want to see. That's what his teammates want to see. That's what the organization needs to see.
Yeah, it is. It's just one of these deals. Like the premise of the season was that they'd have outside shooting to support these guys, that, the big three, ultimately the talent would be enough to win, that they make it work and all this other stuff. And that, at least from LeBron's standpoint, it would be a lighter lift. It would be, Russ would help make this easier. And, both of those guys together would make AD's life easier, and he'd be in a position to dominate. So many of the plans that the Lakers seem to have put together and the conception that they had for this team don't seem to apply anymore. But the one that does is that the infrastructure is there for Anthony Davis to go dominate, because he has two guys who are more than willing, more than happy to let him be that guy, who, quite frankly, badly want him to be that guy. And I understand Anthony Davis does not pass himself the ball. He does not. But there's just a thing. There's a swagger to.
He had the most shots in this game.
Yeah, it's not. But it's not even the number of shots. It's just
My point is simply he's getting the ball.
He's getting the ball. No, I'm not. No. He's getting the ball. They're not. This is not for lack of opportunity.
That's all I meant.
Okay, no, I understand. I totally understand what you mean. But of all the things that you could look at this team and go, okay, well, they were probably wrong in how they thought about this. They were probably wrong in how they thought the defense could stitch together. Clearly, they were wrong in how they thought they were going to solve the non-LeBron minutes or whatever it is. Anthony Davis is still primed to be able to take things over, especially when both of those guys are on the floor with him. It would help if Vogel would find a better lineup with better spacing and all that kind of stuff, but that's not the limiting factor. In 2020, when he was better and more dominant and left more imprints, particularly in the playoffs, the Lakers played a starting lineup that was super duper clunky, and Davis still managed to do what he did. It's in him. Frank Vogel talked about the lineup. They went with small to begin the game and started Dwight Howard at the start of the third quarter. It is indicative of the puzzle that Vogel is trying to solve, hasn't figured out how to do it. And I want to ask you a couple questions, Andy, about maybe what the best practices might be going forward to try to figure something out here, because they got to come up with something quickly. We'll do that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Built Bar. It's the holiday season right now, which means gifts, eating, and more eating. And you know what? Go nuts. You earned it. But you want to offset that decadence with some degree of responsibility. You just don't want it to taste responsible, which is why Built Bars are perfect. They are the new holiday dessert. You can feast on something that tastes awesome and actually feel good about it. It's low calorie, low carb, low fat, high protein, covered in 100% chocolate. Built Bars are a great option for when you're going ham during the holidays, but you don't want your taste buds to know the difference. You can share some at family gatherings. It's going to make things less awkward. That and just do what I do, which is avoid conversation altogether. So go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15, you get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCK15, 15% off at built.com.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season is marching, Andy, towards the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head over to the new updated website or updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code Locked On to receive that bonus. So from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, down to your favorite casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest, easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So Vogel started small, as he did against Boston. The difference being Avery Bradley's thumbs were operational, so he was back in the starting lineup. THT there as well. So the questions about floor spacing still relevant. Third quarter, he went with Dwight Howard, pulled THT, and went a little bit bigger because they were getting hammered on the glass, particularly as the first half went on. He is having an enormous amount of difficulty finding a lineup that can be consistent at the same things consistently night to night. There is zero rhyme or reason to how the Lakers go out and how they perform. Sometimes it's matchup based, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's just, it is 26 games into the season. Vogel, who really said in the preseason, Andy, he wants to play a consistent lineup, is obviously frustrated by the inability to come up with anything that works from night to night.
Well, I mean, the first issue he has that is, kind of hanging over all of these mysteries is they're not playing consistently hard and consistently focused. So to some degree, until you solve that problem, whatever lineup you come up with, whatever rotations you come up with, however balanced they may be, or like to the highest degree you can discover balance with this roster, if these guys don't play with the requisite focus and energy and intensity and sense of purpose, it's not really going to matter. Like if you don't have consistent effort and consistency along those lines, you're not going to have consistency just through skill sets and talent, because this team hasn't built up that type of foundation yet.
Yeah, it's funny.
So that's part of it right there. And these guys, it's interesting when you said they got to solve this pretty quickly. Anthony Davis actually said that after tonight's game, that like he still said they can turn this around and he's not panicking, but at the same time, they got to land on a solution really quickly.
But that is a different thing, because the other thing that they said after the game, almost to a man, was we got to stop looking. And I'm paraphrasing, but this is the spirit of what they're. Got to stop looking for that thing that is like, here's the moment where we have turned it around, like where things fall into place. It's disorganized, and all of a sudden now we have this clarity on how we can go forward and we can roll. It looked for maybe a quarter like the Lakers were going to kind of roll that thing from Boston into this and maybe pick up a good road win, and now you go into Oklahoma City, and my God, if they lose that. So you win 3 in a row now, and you come home, you got Orlando on Sunday. Like, suddenly you're on a little 4-game winning streak, and you start to feel good about yourself. You've gotten reps against bad teams. That's not coming. Like, they are a 500 team, and getting out of this is going to be a grind. And there's no magic bullet. I think AD kind of talked about it in that way. Westbrook talked about it. Frank Vogel talked about it. They got to figure it out something quickly. They got to get to where they need, progress, consistent progress quickly. But consistent progress isn't going to be they're what they are today to they've ripped off 12 games in a row. It's not going to look like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny when you were saying what do these individual moments mean? Like the win over Boston, is this the start of something? You said yourself, there's no magic bullet.
There's that temptation all season long to treat those moments like that.
And I'm saying I think it is high time, if not the players themselves, because I don't know for sure that they're doing that, but certainly the media and the people covering this, like, it's high time we just stopped searching for that from a win. Like, we will know it happened 2 weeks after that win. Like, we need to stop looking at that as like the aha moment, like Boston or the beat down against Sacramento. Like, stop looking for signifiers in a win. The signifier comes 2 to 3 weeks after that win. Like that, like it's a long signifier. It's not a moment.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's funny too, hearing guys talk about, they gotta be grinding this stuff out. Like they gotta take on more of a grinding mentality. And it's correct. Like and Anthony Davis said afterwards that they gotta start thinking of themselves as underdogs. And the way they're playing right now, they likely are underdogs in a lot of these games that they play. This is the downside to having a team that's made up with so many guys who are either currently stars or spent the majority of their careers as stars. Stars don't typically grind a lot. They're not typically asked to grind a lot. And the grinders of the Lakers for the last few years all got traded away or didn't get re-signed. KCP, Alex Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, for all the focus on the fits and the Hollywood and the DMs and the Jenners.
They asked him to be a grinder, and he did.
Even, the likelihood of him being around this season was low anyway. Montrezl Harrell, Danny
Markieff
Green,
Morris, guys just filling all
in his own right. Jared Dudley, like there's that grinder. When you look at this roster, who is it? I'll tell you who. It's Avery Bradley. It's why the dude stays in the starting lineup, whether we like it or not, whether fans like it or not, whether or not the numbers, the advanced stats like it or not. He is one of the few guys on this team that you look at and say, no matter how well he's playing, how poorly he's playing, he's got a grind it out mindset.
Yeah.
They don't have enough of those dudes.
And I'll say this, like, your point about effort and intensity and focus is 100% valid. And this is, and I'm not literally asking you to answer this now. It's a question we can answer next week. And a lot of this, though, to me is I'm still looking at especially with the supporting cast, and trying to figure out where effort is a thing and intensity is a thing and focus is a thing. And then you have to add understanding and skill set, because sometimes when you don't know what you're doing, or you're not good at the thing that you're being asked to do, you look like you're unfocused. Like, I will say this, Malik Monk, I think is working hard. He has moments where he stops in the motor, like whatever, defensively.
By his own admission.
He gets caught, napping. But that happens to a lot of people. He is also not great at the things that they're asking him to do defensively. So, like, focus and intensity and effort, LeBron is excellent at all the things that he can do. And then, the intensity waxes and wanes a little bit, sometimes with good cause, because you don't want. So that's another, to kind of wrap it back to where I was at the beginning of the segment. we can finish here. That is, I think, part of the incredibly difficult thing that Frank Vogel has in front of him is, he, at the very least, he had guys he could ask to do A, B, and C last year, knew what that was, and the pieces had a coherent fit to them. Even with guys like Schroeder and Harrell and whatever, he knew what their shortcomings were. He knew what that was all established, and it was like you could work around it. And I think the frustration comes with him in that they're still working through all of that stuff, and that ultimately there is no fit that makes this worse.
Sure.
And I think the Argo solution where you have to decide on whatever course you're going to take and accept that here are the 5 things that suck about the lineups or the rotation or whatever that we're going to go forward with. Hopefully the 7 things we think are better will outweigh it, and we're just going to figure it out, but we're doing this. That's, I think, where they need to go.
Well, I mean, I think there are certain things that I think Vogel could do to make the overall the overall effect more functional. Like I would personally play THT off the bench.
I would play THT off the bench.
I don't
start Ellington with that group.
But yes, I don't think he fits with this lineup at all. I mean, the Avery Bradley thing we've discussed to death. Again, he played well in this game, but there are certain things I think Vogel could and should be doing that could make life a little bit easier. I think he has been at times very flexible, at times a little bit too stubborn, but I still feel like until they solve the consistent effort, focus, and purpose thing, the other mixing and matching that Vogel looks to do is not going to bear consistent fruit anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
Because this team just isn't good enough right now to be greater than the sum of their parts through their parts, if that makes any sense.
It does. All right. Well, this was a downer of a show because it was a really annoying game. It just was.
Well, we're not going to be Pollyanna for you people. Sorry.
Nope. And I don't think that's what they're looking for right now.
No, I don't think it's why people come to us either.
No. But it's going to get better. I feel like Monday is going to be a much happier show. I'm going into the weekend feeling good, Andy, because I am by nature an optimistic person. Many people think that's
that, and they play stupid. Orlando on Sunday.
It's true. And Oklahoma City on Friday. There's Oklahoma City on Friday and Orlando on Monday. And gosh darn it, I'm going to feel optimistic about these.
I'm an optimist by nature. I also looked at the schedule.
I looked at the schedule. Please, on Monday, regardless of what happens, make us your first listen of every day. Because if it goes poorly this weekend, you're going to want to hear what we have to say.
Yeah, we're working hard for y'all.
Yeah, and you're going to be interested to find out who the next coach is going to be. So, and we'll get to all that. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube. Have a great weekend, everyone.